I'd introduce you, Paul, but you beat me to it. Maybe to get things started, I'll just ask, when First Reformed came out, you were quite open about the fact that you would confine if that was your last film. And in part because of the success of that movie, which led to your first Academy Award nomination, you've continued on with The Bard Counter, now Master Gardener, and you're preparing for the new film. What is it like for you to be in this, what must seem like sort of unexpected and uncharted territory?
We decided when First Reformed was at Telluride, Peter Young was one of the grand innovators of international cinema. He was there. He followed them, and he said to me, he gave me the most backhanded compliment I've ever received. He said, Paul, this film, First Reformed, it's not a comeback, it's a resurrection. So, a lot of it simply has to do with technology. I've been working in the Hollywood system for many decades. And trying to work in a governmental system without subsidies and any pretense of non-commercial cinema is part of that. And then the technology began to shift. So when I started directing, I was scheduled maybe 42 series or 45 days. Today, for these films, it's 20 days. This film was 20, that's more than 2 to 4, and the next one is scheduled at 21. And at 21 days, I am putting more images into the chip than we used to when we had film that we put into the cameras. And everything's faster, everything's quicker. And therefore, films that were seen as financially irresponsible now are, for me, becoming sort of responsible. And that if I can get budget down, and I know how to shoot very, very sparsely and correctly, and if I get everybody to work for scale, I can go to the investors and say, quite honestly, I used to say this, but I was lying. Now I can say it quite honestly, I didn't get you your money back. And so, with Christian, I think that that's all I'm entitled to do. I'm not entitled to make them rich, but I end this gently bargain and get your radar. And I'm getting them all their money back, and then they get to go to film festivals and wear tuxedos. And my kids are in the class. My phone was down, and it gave me the courage to follow some instinct, or I always followed my instincts in the past. It's been very burdening sometimes. You would get repudiated, and sometimes you would lose faith and make compromises. But now, if I get a feeling for something, like I felt for this film, I just make it. And if I can do it in the right way, then I found today. I truly love weight career. And I began writing, I was one of the first writers who began writing on spec. And I probably will be one of the last. This weekend, a writer's chart. But so do I felt very fortunate.
But I think from the canyons forward, you've just been so receptive, as you said, to changes not just in technology, the industry, the culture. Many filmmakers of your generation have not been as sort of open and receptive to those changes as you are. What is it that keeps you unlocked and open in that way?
I like to work for ourselves in the front tents. A lot of directors fall back into doing historical epics and, big budget, sci-fi. The thing that brought me into film, because I didn't see film as a child, was the cinema of the 60s. And they were a very restrained film. The Nouveau Antonioni and Berkeley, Fassbinder. And they weren't big things. They weren't huge amounts of extras to do the budgets. They were chamber pieces. They were handmade films. And that's how I fell in love. And, they say that you never forget the music that was playing when you first fell in love. And that was the music that was playing cinematically when I fell in love with the movies. And so I always wanted to make those films. Now, my friends and peers, like Stewart or Scorsese, Lucas Coppola, they found love at a younger age in mine, and they found love with the kind of Hollywood grandness. But I fell in love with these small little films. And so I've been fortunate that the technology is allowing me to make them, God bless Marty, just did a $200 million. Well, I played kind of quite happy doing $4 or $5 million.
Well, if I may, it's the thing I think I find most inspiring about you is simply that you could not be stopped. And I'm curious, especially as your career's gone on, you've had some definite ups and downs. What's kept you moving forward? Like, what keeps you going forward through your whole career?
The alternative? They say in our business, retirement happens when the phone doesn't ring. In my case, retirement happens when you stop having ideas. And you still get ideas. And when all the ideas was from me. I have this manuscript now about Black subculture. I just acted this idea. I'm not the right person to direct it. I talking with Andrew on football, maybe his company will do it. But I'm still writing it. It's a good idea. I'm not being paid for writing it, just good. And it excites you. And then I'm doing a film in July. I'd film about dying, it's about time. And I even filmed a few months ago about female sexual irresponsibility. And now the film I didn't feel I should direct. But the ideas just keep coming. And not about, I think you would now you have 2 or 3 things artists are going, you're taking up these occupational metaphors and thinking, wouldn't it be nice to go back into that genre, just yes, more saying somebody, maybe it's time for a new Blue Angel. What a new Blue Angel about hard, So you get these ideas, most of them you move on from, but you keep getting them and you keep making notes, and some of them get traction. Some of them start to have lives.
And, I think it's because of your background as a film critic, but there are few people as perceptive about the work of Paul Schrader as Paul Schrader. And I think you can appreciate how rare that is among the filmmakers. And I'm wondering if at what point did you recognize this thematic idea of the man in the room? Was it something that you feel like you were aware of even as far back as when you were writing Taxi Driver?
No, before. I mean, I know what's happening. I could tell you. When he was at it was a morning in March, and it was in 1959. And the second week in March, Monday or Tuesday, at 10 o'clock in the morning.
What did he see?
A critic for the LA Free Press, which is an unadopted across all publication in LA at the time. And the bracelet on a pickpocket was coming to Los Angeles 10 years after it had opened in Paris. There was a screening at the Los Feliz at the Aero Theatre. I know what the song so, and the sun is very short, only 75 minutes long. And I think two things in that 75 minutes. One was that I had thought there was no connection between my sacred past, that is my theological training, work in the church, a Christian education, and my proclaimed present, which was as the film student at UCLA, as we are just not connected. And I saw this film, and I said, there is a connection. But it is not a connection of content. And I kind of thought, all through the ages, all around the world, different people in different cultures were dealing with the holy other and with tragedy, have come up with certain stylistic devices, whether it be an setting guaranteed or a cathedral or a choral. And same is true of film. Rousseau is reaching out to find a stylistic equivalent. And it's not about the holy, it's about the way, And that idea ended up as a book 2 years later, Swindell's down. So that was a momentous thing that happened in the course of that screening. And the other thing that happened was I had not come up myself interested in being a self-maker. I was a self-critic, obviously appalling chaos. I wanted to be a critic. I was not a filmmaking student, I was a film studies student. And I was living in a house in the Fairfax district with 4 English students, and they all wanted to be filmmakers. They were making a film at that time for around a car and a bike film, making agents. And I thought, and they were kind of trash. And they thought I was, so beneath what the world was about. Their world was about getting to Hollywood. My world was about scholarship. And I was very elitist. I was part of that generation that would said as a critic, we will tell you when you make a good film. Okay? And so I followed this film. Time to die when I sent Joe was out still some stuff. I sent the journal, talked from question in journal, visits his neighbor. That's what all the times. And I looked at that and I said, I've been making up on my thought. Maybe there is a place for me in film making. And 3 years later, I wrote Taxi Driver, which is that Bryson Job was on, that's this best. And so in that 75 minutes, March of 69, I didn't realize it at the time. Now, in retrospect, I realized that was the fulcrum upon which my life actually revolved. But the things don't revolve around the fulcrum. Bad choice of words.
But in these recent films in particular, for example, with Master Gardener, the way that you kind of match a problem and a profession. So here you have this reformed white supremacist, and he becomes a gardener. How do you sort of like come to match those two things up?
Well, first of all, you're looking for a profession and an occupational metaphor that is richer than people imagine. So the first time this occurred to me was with Taji Dilator, when I had some personal problems that demanded I move from nonfiction into fiction. It had to be written about. And the image of the tattoo mirror occurred to me. And at that time, the cliche of the taxi driver was this girl was friendly guy, and Tojo, who's basically your brother-in-law. So we looked at him. I said, no, taxi driver is the black heart of Dostoevsky. This is Evan Ryan and a block and a bright yellow coffin. Thrown into the sewer, getting angrier and angrier. And that's what people don't realize about taxi driver. And therefore, I was able to take an occupation that people thought they understood and take it to another place, and in that middle ground between what they expect and what you deliver is the ground your art is. You know, that two poles, it wants that, the smart focus, just to pull by focus. And so suddenly, gardening, great metaphor. We're the oldest one of all. We'd still be who are if we had to listen to that snake. Gardening can be seen as curative, life-enhancing, restorative, beautiful, but it also can be seen as cruel. Cutting, ripping out weeds, deadheading. And so that, you know, both the white supremacists and the gardener and use the same metaphor. You know, we take out the weeds. And so that now I had an occupation that people thought they had pushed through. And I could light it up with another perception of it and then create a middle ground where the spark would exist, where people could make them leap from what they expected to what they were seeing, and him not taking part of more art exists. You know, art isn't something I make for you. Art is something that you give to me in response to stimuli I give to you. I cannot tell you really how to feel. I can take you to a place, but I can't go through the door. You got to go through the door. And then the question is, how do you get to the door? And how do you get the viewer, listener, reader to walk you on the road? And suddenly with Tart Connor, you have a professional poker player and a torturer from a mobile. That would be two things I'm not normally affected. But the other was people say, oh no, he plays cards now as he tried to block out of that he used to be a torturer. And then they have that chance. And then the movie starts to come alive, the same.
And on a recent piece of the New Yorker, it sort of charts a series of test screenings that you had for Master Gardener, where at first you feel the movie's not working. And ultimately leads to you actually sort of reconvening your cast and recommitting some new scenes. How do you come to realize what's missing? Like, what for you is that process of figuring out what what the film needs?
You know what he develops. I mean, you can tell it, you have that first screening, you sit at the back, and you're just watching everybody from the eye, listening to the breathing patterns, listening to their attendance of thought. And also you just start feeling it. And it was first performed, tired on I hadn't even aware. This woman did work. I knew there was something wrong. And I didn't know what it was yet. And it kept editing. And then just like the architecture with attitude, nothing on it. You missed a scene. When you wrote the script, you missed a scene. And then and I wrote the scene, and that's the scene that it is now set in the quote-unquote cafeteria of the Botanical Garden, which is actually remote in the Bronx, but it's just a recreate where she gets in. And then that's when I realized I looked at the television. I never gave her a chance to be pissed off. And she couldn't get to that place. I wanted to take her in terms of the reverse Mandingo state, which is where I call them sexy. And the nature from the lives. She had to have a scene, or she was late. I hadn't given it to her and written her. And so, that's a fortunate thing. And in post-production, we need to realize that and fix it. And not change till there's some more stuff. It's to know exactly what the problem is. This is what I missed. We'll take a half-day shoot. This is what time. Well, fix it. And because the worst thing is to realize that after the movie goes out, and you say, "Oh, I want to see it. This is what I have to do. If I had done that, if I had written that scene, So I was fortunate to catch it in the editing process.
And now I think part of your sort of master project, something I think so many of your films deal with, is essentially the sort of the faults and problems of masculinity. And I'm wondering at this point, having made so many films on the subject, having studied masculinity. Well, I want to ask you, what do you feel like you have learned? Like, what have you gained from sort of meditating and really focusing on, the problem with us for as long as you have?
Well, we keep said at the Venice Film Festival. Now, I'm friends with this writer, S.G. Bibben, Appalachian writer, and she did the song at the end. We re-recorded it as a hard K song. And although I never too fake, the lyric of that song is, "I never want to leave this world until I say I love it." And it's a wonderful song, so I wanted to use that at the end. We used it at the end. And I said in Venice, that when I was a young writer and a young artist, I never wanted to leave this world until I said, "Fuck you." And now I don't want to leave until I say I'm up. So that's the art.
It's just, I didn't know what you did.
Because I have to say, in so many of the recent interviews that you've done, your piece on the maybe you did for the pack, that you've been so vulnerable and open about your own health, your family situation, your legal situation. Is that? And you're Paul Schrader, movie tough guy, and I'm just curious, that vulnerability, does that feel new to you? Is that because of COVID? Is it because of where you are in your life? Where is that coming from?
It's always there. Gotta keep angry. Which is almost 50 years old now. It was written as self-therapy. I was in a very scary place. And I was afraid I'd be able to become this kid. I was becoming it. If I could write about it, I could exercise out. I've always been relatively scientific. Learned about the synergy between art therapy and commerce. What you think about this one? Really awesome. Kind of stacked.
Not just after.
These recent films, you've been working with actors who, in some ways, are relatively young, but they're also, sort of middle-aged men. Obviously, Ethan Hawke, Oscar Isaac, Phil Edgerton. What have you been sort of like finding and working with these actors of a younger generation?
Well, back when my generation, or seen or can't work, and allow me. And but the long million real film, when you should hear again after all these years, but having to do him as an old dying man, and then and be like that, and the young actor is younger self. But when it comes to these kinds of actors, and we're mostly bad. My son did write one night, not have arrested. That you're looking for somebody who the audience had invested in. Somebody who you can teach how to lean back, not how to lean forward. I've been lean back and making the way there. How do you do physiognomy? It's a whole lot of combination of things. But when you feel an actor leaning in, you feel an actor desperate. When you feel an actor wanting to earn your attention, you feel an actor wanting to act. Robs you of your own agency. So that one thing I've been telling actors over the years is I know that you have this image in your head of yourself as a lone pine tree in the windy storm, and the winds are ripping through the landscape, and you are swaying with the wind, and you are staying firm, and you are resisting. Get that image out of your head. Here's the image I want you to have in your head instead. You are not a lone pine tree. You are the rocky shore itself. And the waves are coming in, and they are smashy to get to, and they're going to go away. You don't just do a thing. Just respect your position. The waves, so sometimes they'll be called the putter, sometimes they'll be called a position. Sometimes they'll be called, comic relief. And in order to hit you, don't try to fight. Don't resist. Just wait, they'll go away, and you will still be there. Now, that works when you make a film like these last three, where the main character is in every single scene, because he's everywhere. Although he won't be responding, because I realized if I was writing the script there, I was thinking I had the perverse idea, and what is Sybil Shepherd and Jodie Foster have coffee together? So I would be able to put it. But that, how I take a really movie acting and movie presence is somebody, for some reason, we give agency. We do the work. And how we get the audience to do that, how we get the audience to give Joel back. So all through this film, I was always telling Joel, don't do that, don't do that. Leave that, And finally we did that scene in the pickup truck where he rolled into the live Fantasia scene. And I said, Joel, all these days I've been telling you to look at it. Well, this is why. Here you get to debug for it. Now you get to explode. Just explode. Do whatever you want. So to do that, it's a tremendous moment.
And before we take some questions from the audience, I just want to ask you one more question, which is simply we're here in Los Angeles. You have made, to my mind, some of the best films about Los Angeles. of the American Gigolo. And when you come back here to Los Angeles, what does the city bring to mind for you? What sort of memories come to you when you return to Los Angeles?
Well, the first day, weddings on Mother Dear's. Why did I ever leave? So I'm happy to be back. And the next day you say, yeah. But then the next day, I have a one better. Yes, what is nice. Not really happening. Or make like me a dog. I love you. He's driving around and it's just in Beverly Hills. Doing it. Recommend the thing. It's all been rebuilt.
And
So people my parents cannot discuss it. Word polite.
did you hear? Yeah.
Students outside. I'll be curious outside. I love the page of the app. Yes. Cappuccino.
The question has to do with the theme of redemption across your films and why within the female characters are some often sacrificed.
Now, the first editor means reunion. Like you write it, you know. And I wrote about, I was young, 20, and lonely, and I break. And that's what I wrote. Entirely, you know, I'm on 90, you know, I'm going to die someday. And so this all comes from that tradition of European existential literature, starting with Dostoevsky, going to Robert Musil, to Camus, to Sartre, the Quintessa. Most of these characters were male, you know, a tongue shake, mother died today or whether the year should be. And so that's the tradition which I'm coming from. I haven't made a couple of films with female protagonists, but I did write Patty Hearst's Cat People. And then I did write this one, mentioned the end out in the last night, that I wrote by fall about a female protagonist in this situation. But it was about her need for redemption came from her sexual irresponsibility. She got people in trouble, malfeasance. And she was the lead. She was the person, for she was the white supremacist, torture or whatever. And it's a good strip. It's about a nurse in Puerto Rico. And I just did the film that I was the person at a high age to make that film. And then I since put that option to Elizabeth Moss to star and direct and complete. She does it, but I just, you know, sometimes you meet and know when you walk away from the table and not make a film that you're not really prepared to make. And so maybe I do make some films that I should make, but I probably don't make them because it would get very good. And you know, it's no fun being politically correct, and the work has been good. You know, nobody wins that. So the work had to be good. And I mean, like the first film I did was about blacks auto plants. First film I directed, blue collar. Now I'm writing another one. I have no idea about blacks. I don't think I'd rent this one because there were too many good black directors now. There weren't any black directors of it. There were only a handful, one hand, when I did blue collar. Now there's a whole room full. And so then you start worrying about the presumption of why should I be telling this story from South Central when there are so many other guys out there who could tell it better and more brightly than I am. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We know when to step back.
Connect with a question right there.
We've shared the number of outlines of your so
Well, I mean, you know, I sometimes get used to why are women redemptive figures? Because they are.
So we teach.
What? I just get.
Specifically, at least 3 films: Teen, First Performed, Card Counter,
That's right. Why are they relooking treatments?
First part, the woman care that Madam is exactly it's redemption because the woman what
Yeah, that's what women do. They love us. That's why we get redeemed. I think it will all these things. No, but thank God for it. Just about.
Yep, we'll go ahead here.
so you shared the number of outlines of your film, something else as part of your process outline. I'm just curious whether like your characters journaling is part of it.
And the question has to do with whether journaling is part of your creative process.
No, and I wish it was. And I really respect people who do journals because I think a real writing, the cliche is you should write 500 words a day in some way, letters, emails, journals, well, and I respect people who do journals. I would certainly wish I never have, but I like this Brazilian idea of this something beyond, not this grotesque, obvious VO film noir, where they're telling you exactly how to feel. It was this hot, it was a hot summer afternoon. She walked into the building like her. But this other kind of spooky VO, just like a journal, which is kind of like intravenous feeding, where you're even nourished by it, you can't taste it. And an example of that is, say, I own Disney. So, the car was running low. Our gas had decided to fill it up. Gas was at $4.25 last week, but it's at $4.79. My brother had written me, and apparently our mother is very sick. I went inside and he picked up a sandwich. Then I decided to get a coffee. That's the deal. And really the deal, where I was saying, you could blah, 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 here's how you play cards, here's what gardens are about, and I was, oh, it gives you a buzz, like the buttons you feel before pulling the trigger. Oh, why, let's talk about policy.
I want to get something towards the back. There in the ball cap? Yeah.
You said talk about these films to be 20 days long. What's your rehearsal schedule?
And the question has to do with, especially in these short shooting schedules, do you have time for rehearsal?
Yeah, I mean, we're already doing more important. And then, of course, but that's also an economic consideration, particularly the free notification. But you should, the lot was only town to get easier, because you have to put them all, that's a monetary consideration. Well, I do like to do as much rehearsal as possible, so that you come to the set with a play lay, literally with a shot list. In story more, you have a whole shot list. You've gone through, you block the scene in a rehearsal space, and then you get out there, and everything's checking. But it's awfully hard to go to plan B if you don't have plan A.
And we're time for one more. I think from the end.
I should know how the relationship with that client started and what was it like working then.
And what has to do with the relationship between you got Hines and came to Connor?
Well, that was recommended to me by the music supervisor. And I like his work, and I particularly like his composition work, jazz work. I don't think I had as productive a relationship with him as I wanted, because he's very involved, introvert. He's known that he has the slightly on the back, give and take sort of guy. And you push him, and he doesn't push back, it just stands back. And we're pretty happy with what we did together, but I'm so frustrated by the personal experience I suppose that's been feeling about how the underbody well is kind of rock and roll. Let's try and learn how to do that. You know, anything loans and throw it against the wall, sit of a stick. I'll take out the it's on our podium and buddy's on with us. Whereas if somebody did not work in that way, I'm very unhappy with when I die. But I would be blind to you, I saying that it was a creative match. It's temperamental. We weren't as ideally suited, as I said, I was to the one before Robert Reeves, Michael Bean said for Black Rebel motorcycle level.
And we will take to Swindell. Yep, right here.
Out of the writers, directors, actors involved with it, what do you find with the best films at the format?
Is there anything of the especially the writers, directors, actors that you've collaborated with? What is it you find the best ones all have in common?
Well, you know, he's smart. He has to be intelligent. Even if that intelligence is feral, all on around easy. Seems counterproductive. Seems like no, people are with large are smart. So for blank in obvious ways, and so it just really a question about the right person in the right situation. And I remember years ago when I knew Anthony Perkins, I said that, you know, Elia Kazan says that acting is 75% casting. And so Perkins said to me, no, yet Kazan brought is 90% casting. Meaning that if you're the right actor at the right time with the right skills, it'll be great. And if you're miscast, it's harder than anything you can do about it. And the same goes for the people you work with. They can be the greatest actors in the world, but if you miscast them, or if they miscast you, it's a terrible relationship. And so that it is very case by case in that way. You know, I had a great relationship with John Hurdy years ago, and everybody said, yeah, oh, John liked the work. He might fall in love with John, but we were just fine. But I don't disbelieve you when you say that he was a nightmare work. Other than I know the being, that's all I care about.
And then that's where we're going to wrap things up.